Hello there. Welcome to Marriage Unmasked podcast. Today we're talking about a really heavy, serious topic. We're talking about grieving the marriage that you wanted while you're still staying in the marriage that you're in. But you're grieving some of what you were hoping for. You had some hopes and expectations and dreams for your relationship and your marriage and what it would look like and what it would feel like and what your spouse would be bringing to the table. And these things just weren't realized. So your expectations weren't met, and maybe it's even more heavy and serious than that. Maybe there's been some really serious pain that's happened. Maybe there's some cheating that's happened in the relationship. Or maybe there's broken trust or communication issues that causes you to grieve, because your marriage just doesn't look the way you wanted it. It doesn't feel the way you want it when that's happened.
And those emotions are so valid. It's totally makes sense that you would feel that way and your heart would be sad and feel heavy. But you can grieve without giving up on the relationship that you're in. And that's what we want to talk about today. I know for me, in our marriage, I had a lot of wounds from men specifically coming into our marriage, and I thought Adam was going to be a really safe place for me, a really safe man, a really trustworthy man. And so it was really extra heartbreaking when he broke my trust, not just once, but again and again, and has really struggled with keeping his word. And this grieving it's a process, and you can grieve it, while it's happening, and then something might come back up, like maybe he again broke my trust again and I have to grieve that over again. Or maybe it's not even that he broke the trust again, it's that something reminded me of that. There's more consequences than how you feel in a moment, right? There's more to when you hurt someone, when you sin against them, than just what happened in that moment. There is just so much more to it. And so sometimes you end up grieving some of the effects, what that has done to your relationship. For me, I was grieving this loss of safety in our marriage. I can't trust him. That when you can't trust your spouse, the relationship is at a really low place. And so that's been something that I've had to do over and over and over again, honestly.
Yeah. And for me, I came into our marriage really expecting and hoping for, in a sense, also a safe place. I had this idea of marriage that I would feel very accepted in the relationship. They kind of interplay because I would show up in ways that were, unhelpful for her. I was like losing her trust. And then she would also show up with the pain, and reacting out of that pain would be very critical and very harsh with me. And so I would close off. I would kind of like retreat into like a shell and feel like I couldn't be safe in the relationship either. When I was growing up too, I kind of had this feeling like I had to be on guard all the time. I had to be, I had to be this best version of myself. And in my marriage relationship, for some reason, I was hoping to be able to kind of let my guard down and just be authentically myself. And I was going to be really loved and accepted in that way. And with our dynamic, like we've talked about, like I was not showing up masculine and giving, her what she needed in many ways and breaking her trust. So then she was also reacting with all that pain. She was like criticizing and all that. I had to grieve that hope that I'd be able to feel that full safety to just be exactly who I was, and I would be completely accepted no matter what in my relationship.
And we all come in having expectations of what marriage is going to be like, and that's okay to grieve those as well. What we're not saying is that you have to grieve it and then be resigned to, okay, well, this is just the way marriage is, or this is just the way he is. He's just an untrustworthy person. I'm just going to completely distance myself from him, and we're not going to have the close relationship that I wanted. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about grieving in a way that still allows you to have hope and not give up on your marriage. We believe that God is still at work. He is still working even through the pain and the massive disappointment, and just maybe there are some things that maybe there's a health issue, or that you didn't know was going to happen in your marriage, and you grieve the loss of the health of your spouse. And those things, maybe they won't change, maybe they will. Our God is a healing God. But we want you to still have hope for so much goodness in your marriage, even if you have to grieve.
Right, and God wants you to have hope too, because He's still at work. He is absolutely still doing things, even in this disappointment, even in this pain, even in this like valley that you may be experiencing in the relationship. He is still at work, and He's growing you on the inside in ways that you maybe don't even know. He's giving you strength. He's helping you to rely on Him and to lean more into Him, and He he has you in this marriage for a beautiful purpose, and He wants you to have hope and to see the possibility of the future and not to just, resign yourself to the pain of the moment.
Mm-hmm. So even if you feel in pain right now, you're sad, you're grieving, your marriage isn't over, and it is valid because your heart was attached to something that mattered to you. No matter what it was. You might have thought that your husband would be thoughtful and romantic, and that mattered to you. And so it is valid to grieve that. But also not just resign yourself to the fact that, okay, well, he's never going to act that way. I mean, we can call each other up to a higher place,
I mean, you
right?
still want to communicate those hopes. You want to communicate about the hopes still. It's not like you're just giving up altogether. There's going to be some grieving for what you're not experiencing yet, but you can still communicate about it and have hope that there can be change in the relationship.
And this stuff can get messy, bringing even more pain if you're not processing this grief in a healthy way. And so that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about really grieving to start that healing process for you, so that you're not showing up to your marriage holding on to that pain in your heart, because then you're just staying stuck, right? Instead of healing and moving forward. And so the first thing is really to be honest about those things. What is grieving your heart? What is making you sad in your marriage? Identify those emotions, really name them, and with God, I think, is especially helpful. You don't necessarily have to bring it up right away to your spouse. You can first kind of process through some of this yourself. This is what hurt me. I feel so disappointed. I expected my husband to be trustworthy, and he broke my trust, and now I feel unsafe, and that's not okay, right? And I can feel sad about that. And I can feel sad as long as I need to feel sad. Really validate yourself in that emotion as well. Otherwise, we end up just shutting down. We end up blowing up when we're trying to communicate things, or sometimes we just numb out and we start that whole process of quietly quitting, which we've talked about before on our podcast. So the other big thing is, you can't receive the good that's right in front of you that God has for you right now if you're still clinging to this pain. If you're stuck with this story that's going over and over again in your head, or this picture of like, why couldn't it be like this, right? This is what it is, but this is what I really wanted. And why can't, if you're just staying stuck in that, instead of moving forward and healing and grieving that, it's just, like I said before, going to bring so much more pain.
Yeah, you can't go forward if you're always looking back, like you're always looking back on what could have been, should have been, what you wish would have been. Then you're going to miss out on some of the hope that's available to you. There's this example in the Bible of Hosea, and it's an interesting example, where God asked him, or God actually commanded him, and had him marry a prostitute, Gomer, as a picture to Israel about the unfaithfulness that was going on. They were being unfaithful to God in the same way that Gomer was unfaithful to Hosea. It's such a fascinating story because I can only imagine, like, the human side, what Hosea is going through.
Yeah.
Being in this relationship where he is constantly, having to grieve the fact that his wife is unfaithful to him, like over and over and over again. And And what kind of process that must have been for him to have to just constantly be, working through that. I would have loved to be like a fly in the wall. How in the world is he dealing with this?
Well, and it just shows that God is so faithful to us, right? When we are in our lowest times, when we're going through these really difficult things that come up, or in his case, that God actually asked him to
Yeah,
do,
yeah,
God is going to be with you through that. He's going to give you the strength. He's going to give you the love that you need. He's going to provide for all the things that you need, even though it seems like a really hard situation. And we're also not saying that if there is unfaithfulness in your marriage,
no,
that you need to just stick with it like Hosea did.
yeah.
that is,
You
that
may,
is,
you may choose to,
right.
you may choose to, or you may,
Right. That's
yeah,
that's up to you guys.
right,
But
right.
yeah, so back to just like that whole grieving process. I think for wives, sometimes this grief comes out in, yeah, resentment. We talked about that. I mean, a lot of wives I talk to, a lot of wives, they have resentment. And I get it, right? I get it. It's hard to be disappointed. It's hard if you don't know how to process these emotions. Sometimes it comes out in like over functioning where they're trying to fix. That's something that I was just talking about with the wives in my restored membership is, always trying to do better, trying to be perfect, trying to get this right so that he will act a certain way, and then they can get out of that pain. The point is we're trying to get away from that pain. Nobody wants to experience pain, and so we do it by in different ways, trying to fix or trying to ignore it. Maybe it's just putting up a wall where you're just pulling away, and you're like, okay, like I know I've done that. Like, okay, he's unsafe. I can't trust him. I'm not opening my heart to him anymore. I'm pulling away from him in this marriage.
Yeah. And for men, it often looks like that too for men. I mean, and sometimes for men it's even more complicated because again it's such an emotional issue, and many men just like struggle to like understand and identify their emotions, or they were raised to kind of stuff those emotions down and to just keep them under wraps, bottle them up, and that can be really unhealthy. So for a man it can be very complicated to work through this kind of disappointment and this grieving of what he wanted in his marriage.
Mhm.
And so it can often look like detachment too, shutting down his heart, just like withdrawing. I know it has for me. Like I said, by putting up armor, putting up a shell. I don't want to be hurt by the relationship, so I kind of close off portions of my heart to my wife, and that has happened for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when we do these kind of coping mechanisms, right, we're not communicating what we're going through. And after you've processed it, it is really important to communicate it then in a healthy way to your spouse, where, you can help them see where you're coming from. And then instead of feeling rejected, which is probably what they're feeling if you're shutting off, coming away from them, you're opening your heart to let them see the pain that's there, but you're also taking ownership for healing it. And you want to just come with compassion for each other because yeah, you're both grieving things, right?
Yeah.
That's not a one-sided thing in your marriage. It's probably both of you are feeling it.
And I think compassion is such an important part of it. It really is to have compassion for your spouse in this time, because it's very easy, it's very tempting to focus all on your own hurt, which is valid. I mean, and it needs to be felt through, obviously. I'm not saying don't process it, but also to, ask God for some compassion for your spouse too. Like, fill my heart with compassion for them. Help me to see things the way they see things. Help me to like approach them with that love and that kindness that they need too in this moment.
And that really comes from knowing how loved you are by God, right? When we are overflowing, our cup is overflowing. We're feeling so loved, even if it's not by our spouse, it's by God, right? Or we're loving ourselves. We're agreeing with that abundant, amazing love God has for us, and we are also loving ourselves in that way. That love is then overflowing, and we can offer that to our spouse in this, painful time.
Yeah, I mean, you're also married to God. I mean, that's, like, and remember that when you're going through this, like, you'll never have to grieve being disappointed in your relationship with God. You'll never have to grieve that because He is always going to be that perfect source of love for you in all situations, no matter what. He has that beautiful unconditional love for you, that sacrificial love that Jesus gives to all of us. And then that's healing to remember that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
healing to fill up on that.
Yes, God's love is healing, right? God is love, and love is what heals. We a lot of times think that, like it's the fixing or it's the doing better or it's that kind of thing that is healing, but it's not. It's the love. It's always God's love. So, the opportunity here, as you're processing this all, the opportunity really is to let go of this idea of a perfect marriage. I know I came in thinking, marriage was going to be something that it just really wasn't.
Yeah, I had rose-colored glasses on too
Yeah.
coming into marriage.
And if you let go of this idea, and I'm not saying let go of like hoping wonderful things for your marriage, that is not what I'm saying at all. I want you to enjoy the beauty and the gifts in marriage, the goodness God has for you. But if you can let go of the idea of a perfect marriage, and the storybook idea of okay, and then it's just happily ever after. It is a lot of work. It's a lot of intention. It's growth. It's growth together. And God is doing so many beautiful things in you, for you, through you. And so, that's really what marriage is, and to kind of focus on that again. And then really, I think the biggest opportunity, especially if you're in a situation where it's not just like, oh, I had an expectation that didn't get met. It's maybe deeper. It's betrayal. It's trust broken. It's, deep health issues that are not getting resolved. And then the opportunity is to practice this beautiful surrender that God has for us, right? We don't have to figure it out. You don't have to figure out, how am I going to continue to do this day after day? How am I going to stay in a marriage where my trust has been broken repeatedly and I don't know how it's ever going to be rebuilt, right? How am I going to get through this when my husband can't even remember because of his memory problems? He can't remember what I said 5 minutes ago. And that happens day after day after day, right? And so this surrender, this opportunity we have to just trust that God loves us, that He is good, that He is working, that He is not forgotten us, that He's not just a silent bystander, sort of relaxing and trusting Him, and enjoying this deeper connection with God.
Yeah.
The relationship with Him is always the most important one. And God is present with you, even if it doesn't look good for you right now, right?
And it provides this amazing opportunity to build that relationship with God again and to just rely on it. Because so many times when we're grieving something that was in our marriage, we were relying on that to some extent. And here we get to now kind of refocus and reshift, and we have that opportunity to rely on God for that need again, to rely on God for that source of strength and hope. And that He just wants to deepen that relationship so much in that time.
So how do you practice this practically? So if you're, I'm going to talk through like individually and then as a couple. So individually, we kind of talk a little bit about like, really processing the emotions. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's just, talking to God. I talk to God all the time. It's like my imaginary friend, except he's not imaginary, but he is my friend.
He's the best friend ever.
But I mean, just knowing you can talk to him about everything. You can process it all out with him. And be so honest about it, because you're not serving anyone by pretending that you don't feel that way or trying to invalidate yourself, like you shouldn't feel that. Just be happy for what you have. There's no need for that. Honesty is so freeing. We lead a in-person marriage group. One of the guys in our group, he just shared with us the other night how he finally was honest with his wife, about how he had been quietly quitting in their marriage, and how powerful that was for him to be honest and let that actually out. I mean, there's so much power in being honest. And so, yeah, let it out. Feel your emotions without judging yourself. Practice compassion for yourself first, and validating those emotions, knowing that they matter. They matter to God. If they matter to God, then they matter. And so that's what you can do individually. And then as a couple, really you want to create that safe space to share about this grief without trying to fix it for the other person. Like, oh, I don't want you to feel that way. Well, let me just, fix this or try to fix it, right? Or defending. A lot of times that's what's come up in our marriage is
Yeah.
maybe I bring something up or he brings something up, and it's like, okay, immediately trying to defend. Yeah, especially if you're bringing it with blame,
Yeah.
right? With accusation.
Yeah.
We want to just share our emotions without blaming. And then really that will help you to get curious instead of criticizing. And so if they're bringing something to you, instead of maybe defending or going on the attack, maybe just ask some questions to try to understand. I want to understand this pain, right?
Yeah.
And that helps too, I think, when you're always judging yourself, like, I'm not good enough, I'm not this, I'm not that. We're judging your actions. That was bad. I'm not doing this well enough. We often have that spirit over our spouse as well. And so we often then go to judgment right away instead of compassion or curiosity or really trying to understand.
That's why some prayer is helpful here too. Like to pray to God for that compassion again, and pray for the Holy Spirit to really fill your eyes and your heart with that love and that compassion for your spouse, and to come at peace with this. So to invite him into that conversation, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the dream that you had, it may have died, right? It may not be existing. It may not ever. I don't know, right? It might come to realization. God loves to delight us, but that doesn't mean, even if that dream has died, that doesn't mean that hope has to die, right? It doesn't mean that that's gone as well in your marriage. You know, I love this question. And I encourage you to just maybe journal this or really perk your mind here as we close this podcast is, what does God have for you right now? Right? What does God have for me right now? Even if I'm feeling in pain, if I'm feeling betrayed, if I'm feeling, unloved, if I'm feeling, whatever, what does God have for me right now? And then also, what does he want to rebuild? Because he is the God of, miracles. He is the God of doing the unthinkable. The things we cannot even imagine, he imagines.
Yeah.
And he does. He makes them happen. I mean, and he's so creative. Like, who wants to knock the walls of Jericho down, by blowing trumpets and shouting? He's so creative, and he does the impossible. And so asking yourself, what does he want to rebuild?
So yeah, like one dream has died, but God has a new dream, and that is something to look forward to. God has a new dream for you, and start to embrace that and look for that.
And we know this is not easy. I mean, we are not trying to oversimplify this either. This is a hard thing to walk through, and like I said, it may come up for you over and over again. So we want to offer you support, and that's really why I created my Restored membership for wives, is to help, to walk with you through this, to coach you through it, with the weekly coaching that we offer, and our Healing Your Marriage course, and walk with you as you walk through this healing with God. And Adam is also,
Yeah, I'm putting together a men's group as well, so I'm actively working on that. Maybe by the time you see this podcast, it'll already be up and running. But it's going to be an amazing environment where guys can support each other in their marriage relationship and just grow and sharpen each other as iron sharpens iron. So I've got some great plans and ideas for it, and so I'm looking forward to getting it set up and running.
So you don't have to walk through this alone. You don't have to try to just white knuckle it. God doesn't want us to be alone. We're meant to encourage each other and be real and honest and vulnerable. And that's where the beautiful healing really happens. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on the podcast. We really pray that God uses this to impact you in your marriage.